quick before you do that. Yep.
All right, guys. So we are learning today in honor of Yakir Yamin ben Yehoshua, who was killed yesterday in fighting in Gaza, and it's very sad. His father was always concerned the whole time. He had a pretty intense job of detonating bombs, and unfortunately, he was killed yesterday. His soul should have his neshama should have an aliyah, and the family should have only know good things going forward. So we're holding page 76A4, A5 really at the bottom. I just want to go back a bit. We had a question that says, how do we know? We're trying to figure out, how does one know what is the source that that a daughter herself, your daughter herself outside of wedlock, it means not your wife's daughter, is forbidden. So Abaya says it's logic. If the granddaughter's forbidden, surely the daughter's forbidden. Rava says that we just bundle it all together. All the direct relationships, and from each bounce off each other, and we learn that it's forbidden, so that would be included in it. And then we had an opinion that I'm just going to read quickly, in page, so it's 76A4, of Reb Abba, the father of Avud de Rabbi Abin, the father of Reb Abin. So he says, the father of Reb Abin says, it's a little further back. So I'll say it outside, because he basically says, because I just want to get to the point where we're holding. He says that it talks about a daughter of a Kohen. Daughter of a Kohen, we know the laws. A daughter of a Kohen is it's a unique case, that if she has relations, obviously not while she's single, but if she has relations while she's engaged or married, then her punishment is burning. I mean, no engaged woman or married woman is allowed to have relationships, but their punishment is different. If they're engaged, they could have stoning. If they're married, they get choked. It's chenek. But if it's a bas kohen, then it's burning, unless she's engaged, according to the opinions that stoning is more severe. So she shouldn't get a low. She doesn't get downgraded. She stays upgraded in stoning, but otherwise it's burning, which is more severe according to all opinions than choking. So that's the law. So the father of Abin says, with the verse that teaches us this law, says Bas Ish Kohen, the daughter of the man of a Kohen. It should have just said the daughter of a Kohen. Why does it have to say the daughter of the man of a Kohen? So the Gemara says that the extra word Ish, the daughter of a man of a Kohen, is coming to teach us that if the Kohen himself, meaning the father himself, has relations with the daughter, then she gets burning. So the Gemara then said, but how do we? So okay, and the Gemara asks questions that But at the end of the day, is that it works out that that's the verse. Even Abaye and Rav agree to teach according to that verse. Why it would make sense, even though they themselves don't need it. And then we ask the question, but according to that, where would there be the warning? We know that every case where there's a punishment by death has to have a warning. So where would there be a warning for the daughter, for a father that has relations with his daughter, that it's forbidden? So if according to Rabbi and Rav, it's not a problem because they bundle it together. And if you bundle it together, so the warnings for any of the other ones include the warning for your daughter. But according to the daughter of the father of Rabbi Abin, who says the only place we see clearly you're not allowed to have relations with your daughter is when it's connected to the daughter of a Kohen, because it says the X word ish. So it's not bundled together. So there's no warning to tell us that that one cannot, should not obviously have relations with his daughter. So he said, I'll tell you where I know it from. The warning says that, so we're holding it. So Ella, according to the father of the Rabbi Avin, where's the proof? So Amar Rabbi Loi, we're holding Amar Rabbi Loi, it's the middle of the page, 76A4. Amar Rabbi Loi says, Amar Kra, the verse says, Al techalas bitchal lahazaynoisa. Don't desecrate your daughter to send her out to prostitution, to just have relations. So he says the fact that it says that means to say that you're not allowed to desecrate your daughter. So he says, so the Gemara says, no, you can't use that verse. You can't use that verse for that for this. Why? Maskav Rabbi Yaakov. Rabbi Yaakov has a question. Achva de Rab Acha, the brother of Rab Acha, Bar Yaakov, the son of Yaakov. Hi Altechalas Bitcha, Lazenoise Lahachiudas. We need it for something else. What do we need it for? And this is connected to the Gemara that we're going to learn now. Haimi Baile Likitanya, like we've learned. Altechalas Bitcha Lazenoisa. Don't desecrate your daughter to send her out for illicit relationships. So you may think that what does the verse come to say? We're not talking about a person who sends his daughter out just to have relations outside of marriage. We're talking about a person who sets his daughter up for marriage. But he sets her up for marriage that she's a Kohen and she shouldn't marry a Levi. She's from a better family. She's from a higher up grade, the grade of a Kohen. So maybe you would think that the Torah is telling us, if you're a Kohen, don't marry your daughter off to a Levi. Be Yisrael or an Israelite. The pasuk is coming to teach us. He says you can't say that. It doesn't say the word don't marry your daughter down. It says don't send her out for Zaina. Zaina is illicit relationships. We're talking about a desecration that is connected to znus, to illicit relationships. How could you say that even if it's maybe a downgrade for a Kohen to marry a Levi, it's not znus? So it's talking about a person who gives his daughter out to have relations, not for marriage. Imkain lemakra al tochel. So according to Reb Abba, he says yes. If that's the case, then if it's just coming to teach us not to send your daughter out to have relations, it could have just said it in the singular. Al tochel, don't desecrate in the singular. My al techalel, which is plural. Shema Minatarti is coming to teach us two things. One is don't send your daughter out for relationships outside of marriage, and also don't have relationships with your daughter yourself. Okay, so that's the warning according to the father of Rababin. So now the question was, according to Rabbi and Rabu, don't need this extra verse of Lo Techalel because they learned it from other relationships because they bundled it up. They bundled it up like we learned the past few weeks that we bundle all the direct relationships, your wife, your mother, your mother-in-law, your grandmother, your daughters, your granddaughters, all in one case, and in there is a warning. So why does the verse have to say plurally al techalel? So why does the verse have to say don't desecrate plurally your daughter out for illicit relationships? My avidle, what do they do with it? So Rabmani says, Zeha maisias pita lezaken. So here starts our Gemara. This is talking about a person who marries his daughter off to an old man, right? Whatever the reason is. Rabbi Kiva Omer, and Rabbi Kiva says no. Or on top of that, Zamaisias pita by Geres, a person who marries his older daughter off to while she's older. And why is that wrong? So Rashi says, what's wrong with marrying off a daughter to an older man or to a while she's older? So Rashi says, Hamasi abitoy lizaken, because she doesn't receive her needs from an old man, because he's not, like we're going to learn soon, he's an old man. He can't have proper married relationships with his wife, so she's going to go somewhere else. So by marrying your daughter off to an old man, you're setting her up to not be faithful to her husband. So why would you do that? So therefore the Torah says don't do that. Don't put your daughter in a relationship that's going to make it challenging for her to be faithful. And what does Rabbi Kiva say? Zeha masha pita begeres, a person who marries off his daughter while she's old. Why does he wait? We're going to learn soon, because he wants her to serve him, to be a house servant, to help take care of the house, to clean the house, to make his laundry, whatever. So he may not want to marry his daughter off because she's valuable to the home. But what's going to happen? You're going to keep her single. She's going to find satisfaction somewhere else, and that's not healthy. So basically the Torah is telling you, don't be a person that's selfish and either marry your daughter off to an older man for whatever reason, or keeping her single in your house for a long time. You're setting her up that she should go find relationships outside of marriage. Okay, so that's how the Gemara sends off, and that's how Rabbi and Rabbi learned the pasuk. It says Lo Yisachala. Amar Rav Kana, this is where we're holding, page 7685. Amar Rav Kana says, Mishum Rabbi Kiva, in the name of Rabbi Kiva. What you won't find a poor person in Israel. Rasha Arim. We'll see what that means. But a Rasha Arim, so to be a naked poor man. Mashaz Bitay Baigeres, a person who keeps his daughter while she's older. Baigeres means an older girl. we know in Torah there's 3 levels of ages. There's Ketana, a girl that's underage, Naira, which is the exact age of marriage according to Torah, about 12 and a half, 13, and then Baigeris is older. So an older girl, he keeps the older girl at home. Auto Masha Bita Baigeris Lav Rasha Arms. The Gemara says, right away asks that someone who keeps his daughter home whilst to grow old in his home is that not a blatant Russia? Like he says, how does he translate the word here? A scheming evildoer, right? Is that not a scheming evildoer to keep his daughter at home? It's wrong. Like Rashi says, Shemasha Aisa Bishvu Malacha. Why does he keep her at home? Not absolute cruelty, but she works at home. This means an evildoer. Shagarim has an Aisa Bishvil Hanasa Shein Liknes Shivcha L'Shamshay. Rashi adds it. Why? You're cheap. Go find you need someone to help you in the house. Go hire help. Ask someone to come be your hire a housekeeper. You're keeping your daughter home so she should stay with you, and therefore therefore she's gonna have to go out and find relationships outside of marriage. What kind of business is that? So Omer Abai. So therefore Abai says we're turning to page 76b1. So this is the wording of Rav Kana. Eza ani Rasha Aram, who is a poor man who's scheming evildoer? That is Hamashe Bita Begeris, a person who keeps an older daughter at home. Okay, again, and here Rashi says, Shebishvil Anius Mashia Zamasha V'Hachi Itmar Ein Lecha Ani Rasha Aram B'Yisrael Al Masha Bita Begeris. Rashi learns that he gives a little bit of a silver lining, that the reason he doesn't hire possibly someone is because he's poor. He can't afford it, right? He can't afford help. So if he can't afford help, he's gonna keep her at home, but that's still wrong. It's a Russia. You're a poor person, yes, and yeah, you don't have help, yes, but that's not your daughter's problem. Okay, now we continue. Rav Kana Mishum Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kana said in the name of Rabbi Kiva, Havazor min hayoyatzcha lefi darkoi. Be very careful to someone who gives you advice with an agenda. And the example giving, the Gemara finishes the statement. What's the Rashi says, the commentators say, what's the connection to this statement to what we're learning? That's the father, right? The daughter asked the father, should I marry this person? No. So maybe he's saying no to all the proposals because he has an agenda. What's his agenda? He doesn't want you to get married. He wants you to stay home. So just be careful when someone gives you advice, and sometimes even a person that you trust and you have, you have to just be careful. Make sure that there's no agenda. And sometimes the agenda doesn't have to be so evil. It could be something, but let's say even a parent who wants their kids home, even when they get married, they want them to live near them so they should be around them. But that's maybe not the best thing for the child. So just the Gemara basically says, hey, Shuki, we're just on page 76b1. So Rav Kana says, because we just mentioned that a poor person, he has no money, he can't afford help, but he may, because of that, keep his daughter at home. That's not wrong. So too, you have to be careful when you get advice from someone to make sure the advice is clean from any agenda. The Rebbe has a whole talk about this, that when it says, Lifnei Iver le'sita michshol, don't put a stumbling block in front of a blind person. Rashi says that don't give someone advice that's not appropriate for him. And the Rebbe learns that what Rashi comes to say is it doesn't mean that it's bad advice for the person. It could even be good advice for the person. But the fact is that what you want to do is that by giving that person advice, that could be good for the person. But you have an agenda, and you're not being clear with agenda. For instance, you tell the person, sure, sell this house and buy that house. And it may be good for that person to sell this house and buy that house, but really you want to buy his house. But you're not being clear about the agenda. So therefore, the Gemara says, the Rav Kana says in the name of Rav Akiva, be careful to get advice from someone who has any agenda. And that could be taken on all levels. Let's move on. Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, Amar Rav in the name of Rav. Hamasi is bite lezaken, a person who marries off his daughter to an old man, like we said before. Masi isha livnai katan. He marries a woman to a young boy, his young son. Right? He marries off. He makes a shidduch. He has an underage boy with an older woman, or a middle-aged woman. It could be a few years, but it could be she's already a teenager or a young woman, and he's a young boy. Or if you give back a lost item to an idol worshiper. So on this, he quotes the verse that says, "Leman sfos harava es atzmeya." that you're trying to mix the person who's satisfied, Rava means satisfied, with the person who's not thirsty with the person who's thirsty. You can't mix someone who's full of energy, a young woman with an old man. The old man is Rashi says is satisfied. He lived his life, and he doesn't have energy to be a proper husband. And she's thirsty. She wants to have a proper life. Because you do that, she's going to again find relationships outside of her marriage. Or in the case, Rashi says, in the case of the young boy's like someone satisfied. He's too young to do anything. So you're going to take again. You're marrying off a woman who's thirsty to a man. So too, he says also, if you return an article to an idol worshiper, so an idol worshiper is full, doesn't want to accept God, and you're a person that wants to accept God. You don't mix things like that. And the energies like that, someone who's thirsty and someone who's satisfied, don't make a good shidduch. So he says that's the pasuk. Hashem lo yislach lo yaveh Hashem sloyach lo. God's not going to forgive. Let's go and learn the Rashis. Rashi says, "L'man sfais lichbar k'may safu shana al shana rav es atzmeya sava bedavar im tzama ledavar." You can't mix someone who's satisfied, full for something, with someone who's thirsty for something. Zakein v'yalda, an old man and a young woman. Zayis sama, she's thirsty. The tashmish for relationships. V'zakein tzava, he's already satisfied. And same thing, the cotton is too young, and the woman wants to have relationships. And this can Rabbi mean in a lot of things. It may be bad advice to get into business with someone who's not ambitious, right? Sometimes people want to get in business with someone who's ready, ready for retirement. If the person's not going to be ambitious, and you're trying to be ambitious and be excited, and that person's already made his money, it's maybe not a good shidduch. Not always are two people a good shidduch, a good match. And he says, what does it mean to give back a lost article to a idol worshiper? He says, "Hashav v'chaver kuti l'Yisrael umar avatzmish hashav saveda ein chashuv mitzvah." Oh, he says something else. When you return an article to a idol worshiper, you're basically showing that you don't do it for the mitzvah. Because if you were returning something for a mitzvah, you wouldn't return it to an idol worshiper. And why is he called Rava? Why is he called a satisfied person? They're not thirsty for God. Like it says, whoever's thirsty, go to Torah. And some of Zuknesis Yisrael. A person who's thirsty for God and to perform his mitzvahs. Okay. So that's again, Rav Yehuda says the name of Rav, that not only is you're actually violating a verse which says God's not going to forgive a person who does these kind of things, who sets his daughter up, his son-in-law, his son up, sets up another person. Okay. Basically, the Gemara asks a question. It says, a person who loves his wife like his own body. And respect your wife more than your own body. And one who educates madrich puts them on the path, your daughters and sons on the direct path and the right path. And you get them married close. The word over here is samach, close to when their age. This is a person who the Torah says about this person, I see that there's peace in your tent, means you have a proper home. You're not going to sin. So here, what do we see from over here? That we just said a person who marries off a young daughter or a young son, it's bad advice. And here it says only next to their marriageable age, but they're not marriageable age yet. So the Gemara says, yes, that's the whole point. Samach lipirkan shani. We're talking about a person who's almost ready to get married. So you don't wait it out 6 months. You advance it a few weeks, but it doesn't mean very early with someone very old or someone very young with someone. Samach lipirkan is not a question. So Rashi, I just want to say, Rashi says, what does it mean to respect your wife? Rashi says, "B'tachshita noin," to buy them nice things. Tachshita is nice jewelry, nice clothing. Okay, let's just go a little further. I can't stay too long. I have to go to the house of the shiva, but I'm going to continue a little bit. He says, "Samach lepirkan shani." Tanu Rabbanim, we learned ha'oyev es shcheinav, a person who's friendly with their neighbors, a makarev es kroivav, a person who's close to their relatives. V'hanoiseis bas achoise, a person who marries the daughter of his sister, your niece. And a person who loans an amount of money which is a sela to a poor person, when he is in time of need. This is a person that the Torah says about such a person that that when you call out to God for things you may need, God's going to answer you. So he says, the Rashi says that the pasuk says before, don't forget about your own blood, means don't forget about your family. And that means to teach us that a person should marry, from there we learn a person should marry their own niece. You're allowed to marry your niece, it's not forbidden. So therefore, when you marry someone, you take care of her. So the Torah says, don't forget about your own flesh, means to say, don't forget about you're looking to get married. Maybe it's marry someone that's related to you, that's permitted, and by that you bring her into a nice home. And also it says, like he said, he brings down, what does it mean, a good neighbor? It says, Taib Shachin Karev Miach Rachik. It's good to have a good neighbor than a distant brother. And also he says, lending money to a poor person, that's all positive things. Tosfos has a whole question on that. Tosfos says there's a scenario where lending money, someone money is a bad idea because you lend them money, then they if they had nothing, so then no one could hurt them. But if they have money, so then someone could take their money from them, and then then they owe you money. You'll take their valuables from them. Sometimes the best thing is they don't have money. No one could. But that's Tosfos goes, and that's another whole scenario of when is it positive to loan someone money? If it's a case basically where it's going to help the person, but sometimes it's actually going to bring a person to a worse situation than they were before. Okay, let's just go a little further. We can finish to the Mishnah. Taner Rabbanan, and rabbis learned. We're top of page 76b2. This goes back to the question of the verse says, right? The verse says about a person who is not allowed to have relations with a woman and her mother. So the verse says, Isha shayikach Isha, ves'ima, a person who takes a woman and her mother. Zima he, this is Zima beish shrafa, you get burnt. Oisai, the person, veshen, and them. There shouldn't be Zima by you. So the question is, who's them? Seemingly them is the mother and the daughter. The problem is, if you marry a woman, she's your wife. You're allowed to have relations with your wife. The problem is the mother. The only problem is if you have relations with the mother. You can't get killed, or the wife doesn't get killed if she gets married, if she has relations with you. She's your wife. So who's them? So that's what the Gemara says now. Taner Rabbanan, Oisai, he gets burnt, ve'esen, and they get burnt. Oisai ve'es achas me'em. Div Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel says him, he means the man, and one of them, meaning the mother-in-law, because the wife is legal to him. Rabbi Kiva says no. Oisai ve'shteihem, him and both of them. And who's both of them? Both of them surely can't mean the wife, because the wife doesn't get punished. So Rabbi Akiva means both of them, the mother and the mother-in-law, the mother of your wife and her mother, means your wife's grandmother. That's what we learned before in the beginning of the Mishnah. Oisai v'shteihem. My benai, what's the difference? Amar Abaye mashma means both of them agree that the mother's mother is also forbidden to you. The question is if it's written in the Torah or not. So my benai, what's the difference? Amar Abaye mashma is thrushim benayu. The question is, how did they learn the pasuk itself? Rabbi Shmuel Sabra Oisai Vesan Oisai Ves Achas Man, that the verse only means one of them. Shekem Belashin Yevani in Greek, Koyin La'achas Heina. It makes sense. Ve'em Chamasa, and the grandmother Medrasha. We learn it from a medrash, like we say. She's included. The mission includes her to be forbidden. The question is if the verse includes it. Rabbi Kiva Sabra, Rabbi Kiva holds Oisai Vesan, him and them. It's Oisai Veshtehen. It means both of them. So ve'em chamasai hacha ksiva, and therefore it says it also in the verse. So there's no difference in halacha. There's only a difference in if it's included in the pasuk or not. Rava says no. Chamasai la'achar misei k'benai. The argument is it forbidden to marry your mother-in-law after your wife dies? Right? The whole connection, the whole reason it's forbidden to marry your mother. For instance, you're allowed to marry your wife's sister after your wife dies. Right? It's happened before. A person's married to a woman, she passes away, you can marry the sister. So maybe you could also marry the mother. So that's the machlekes. Rava Amar Chamasei Lachamisei K'benayu. Rabbi Shmuel Savra Chamasei Lachamisa B'Sreifa. Rabbi Shmuel says, it says Oisai, the Oisan means her. At no case are you allowed to marry the mother-in-law, whether it's before whether it's while you're married to your wife, whether it's after you're married to after divorce or death. Rabbi Kiva says no. The only time the word eshen means them only while they're together alive. As long as the wife is alive, that's when the mother-in-law is forbidden. Otherwise, it's not permitted. It's an isser, but it's not punishable by burning. It's a difference. It's considered an isser. You get malchus, but it's not punishable by burning.
My note here says that it's an isser and you get karet.
You get kares?
That's what my note says in the
Let me see.
halacha here.
Oh, then I was wrong. Hold on. Let me see if Rashi says. Does he say the source of that?
Rambam Sefer Kedusha Hilchot Israeliyah.
Okay, and that's according to the opinion of Rabbi Kiva?
Yes.
Hold on, let me just check. Because the word is Surah Ba'alma. Okay, it could be. Okay, here in my publication it says only Averis. Let me see if the art's scrubbing. If he's going the Rambam, it's the Rambam. There's no argument there. Let's see, 16. Rabbi Kiva interprets Eshen to mean both of them, and the expression indicates that the burning penalty applies only if both of them, the wife and her mother, are alive. When the husband has relations with the mother. If, however, the wife is already dead, there is no burning penalty, though the act is still forbidden by force of the verse. Cursed is he who lives with his mother-in-law. Okay. Apparently, Rashi understands Rabbi Kiva means that one who has relations with his mother-in-law after the death of his wife is not even liable to kares. However, Rambam, you're right. So you're right. So Rashi doesn't seem to say that it's any kares. However, Rambam he quotes, and Tosfos are the opinion that the act, though excluded from the burning penalty, is still punishable by kares. So see also the Meiri. The wife's death removes the burning penalty from the future from the relations of any of her relatives, even with her grandmother, daughters, or granddaughters. Other Rishonim, however, limit this exclusion to the wife's mother and grandmother. Okay, it's machlokes, but the Rambam is saying he quotes from Rabbi Steinsaltz says clearly that that's forbidden. Okay.
Rabbi, in many cases with Rashi and Rambam, you see down the line when the halachas are determined in the Ashkenaz and Sephardi communities that one tends to follow more with the Rambam, one more with the Rashi. Is there any community these days that would consider this to be one up or the other? I mean, if the Rambam paskins one way, do we know what the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says?
Well. One thing is for sure. Rashi doesn't say it's not kares. Rashi just the language Rashi uses is. There is there's a pasuk that we said that says in Devarim, cursed is a person who sleeps with his mother-in-law. So he's saying he only has that. What's that mean? It doesn't say from Rashi, but there's those who say who understand that to mean apparently, like he says, that Rashi says there's not even Isser Kares because he would mention it theoretically. The Rambam he says clearly mentions Isser Kares. I don't know if a deduction from Rashi is strong enough to say it's not kares. The question is if you would get malchus or not. Any time you get kares, you get malchus. It could be Rashi would also agree you get malchus because it says or cursed. Cursed doesn't. It doesn't. In the commentaries I have over here, doesn't say. Just says elirak averos. Shall or sheikh v'chaysnei. The fiv mashmakas of Esen doesn't seem, but it seems clearly from the footnotes and from what Ariel said that both the Tosfos and Tosfos is also Ashkenazi, and the Rambam are in the view that it's kares. All right, I could check into that and we can get back to that next time. All right, gentlemen, I'm going to call it today a little early. I got to go to a shiva. Laila Tov, everyone. Mirz Hashem, see you all next week. We finished we actually finished the sugya, looks like, of the hard sugya of Eilan Nisrafim. So that was a pretty hard sugya we learned from the beginning of the parak till here. Now we're going into the death penalty of the sword, of Saif. So hopefully it gets a little easier. All right, Laila Tov, everyone. Take care.